Hi, I'm Eli Plaskett with Gardner Business Media. This is Michael Gukas, the Chief Economist and Director of Analytics for Gardner Intelligence. We're here to do the 2019 GBI Year in Review. In 2018, the GBI peaked early in the year, hitting an all-time high, and then growth slowed for the rest of the year. I believe you made the prediction that that trend would continue. How did that prediction pan out?
So that prediction was accurate. We did see through the first half of 2019 that, in fact, growth did continue to slow as measured by the overall index. It wasn't until we got to about July that we saw the overall index contract. And when we look at the underlying causes for that contraction, we saw that it was largely driven by backlogs contracting. And of course, the reason for that was because there was a spread between new orders activity and production. We saw that production was a little bit elevated relative to the incoming new orders volumes and activity levels in that third quarter period of the year. So backlogs fell quite sharply. And we're right now in a contractionary period. So we've ended the late cycle phase of slowing growth, and now we are in this accelerating contraction phase through the fourth quarter of 2019.
So with the first two quarters of 2019, we were really just experiencing the end of that business cycle that dominated 2018. But with the last 6 months of contraction, are we just entering 2016 territory again?
The way that we need to think about it is that we have just experienced through the first half of 2019, one of the longest consecutive expansionary periods in manufacturing history. If we want to put an analogy around this, think about a staircase. If you take 30 plus steps up a staircase, and then you take 5 or 6 steps back down that staircase, you're still 2.5 stories up. We need to realize that the business activity, when we look at industrial production, when we look at total GDP output in the manufacturing sector, these things are growing. And we need to realize that a little bit of contraction now does not take us back. It does not undo, almost 3 years of consecutive growth.
So someone looking at their industry and their business right now might think, well, I'm still doing so much better. How can there be contraction? It just means we're slowing down from up here, not that we're back where we were.
Right, we're not back where we started in 2016. And to your point, there's a reason why so many manufacturers have experienced challenges in finding enough employees, right? It's because so much of the economy has been growing for so many consecutive years now.
Because the overall index is lower, does that mean all of the components are down as well?
The answer to that in short is no. What we do know about the different components that we track is that they do have an influence on one another, and that to some degree there will be a lead or a lag in time as to how one influences the other. So a great example would be new orders. When we have a burst of new orders activity, we'll see very quickly thereafter a burst in production in order to meet those new orders. Alternatively, if we think about supplier deliveries in 2018 and 2019, what we saw was a burst in new orders followed by production, right? And then several months after that, we saw supplier deliveries peak. And then supplier deliveries continued to lead the index for many months after that as supply chains attempted to catch up and fulfill all of those new orders that came on the market a bit surprisingly in that first quarter of 2018. And so we need to be cognizant of the fact that, just because the overall index is at a given level, whether it's expanding or contracting, doesn't mean that all other components of the index are doing the same thing at that exact moment in time.
So what should a member of our audience hearing this do with this information?
What's important, as you were saying, is on a go-forward basis, we want to think about cyclicality. As you mentioned, we completed the third phase of a standard business cycle here in the first half of 2019, and the contraction that we're seeing now, you would consider that sort of the first phase of a new cycle, right? So we're going to come down, we're going to contract, and then of course that will plateau, and then we will get back into a growth cycle. And what we suggest for manufacturers is to think about your end markets. This is an opportunity to reevaluate your business. We saw if you go all the way back to 2008, during the Great Recession, firms realized the importance of diversification, having 2 or 3 end markets that they served. And when you look at our Gardner Business Index data, you'll see that we have several end markets that continue to grow. We have more than half, of course, are contracting right now. But if a shop is going to diversify, they can look at our data, and we can help them with this. They can look at which end markets follow slightly different cyclical patterns, and if they are able to serve those different markets, it will help them to offset. So when one end market is maybe weaker than the other, right, they can shift their production, shift their resources, and serve the market that's doing a little better.
So thanks for sitting down with us, Michael. I'm Eli Plaskett. This is Michael Gukas. For more information on the Gardner Business Index and our products and services, check out GardnerIntelligence.com.